Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, June 11th, 2024. My name is John Pieranunzi, and this is the opening swing. Let's begin today, as we always do, with our news. I'll find it here. Europe is mostly unched. Again, not a whole bunch out of Europe. We had the Great British Unemployment Rate. That was really the most important thing. Mostly in line. So nothing really big happening there. Coming into the US hours, again, it's pretty slow today. Not really anything market moving on the calendar. So that's what's going on. And of course, tomorrow we have the CPI and also the FOMC announcement. So that's the big news that we're kind of waiting for today. As I mentioned, Europe is essentially unched. We'll take a very quick look at the weekly, even though nothing's really changed. But on the weekly chart, we just see, again, reiterating, we had our rally, our pullback, made a low that seems to be being defended, and then we've pushed higher for a new all-time high. And as of right now, we're holding within the prior week's range, but kind of trying to hang on to the upper quartile of the prior week's range. And I just want to reiterate, like I mentioned, that's pretty much even money for the two tests that I had mentioned are important when the weekly chart is in this stance. The tests are potentially the 50% line, which is the 53.16 region, or the high, which is the all-time high 53.85 region. And the market is currently pricing us with dead money, even odds of getting either one of those tests. So that's what we have as of right now on the weekly. Taking a look at the daily, our daily chart is pretty much in balance. We have we're on our third day of overlapping bars. This is Friday. We have, which I had mentioned, the high and low of Friday are very important. We're trapped within that range. This is the prior week's profile taken forward. We have this HVN, which right now to me is looking to be acting as resistance. The HVN is also in confluence with yesterday's VPOC, which is the 65 and 3/4 area, right up here, and settlement at 71. So basically what we have here is we have our settlement in this HVN region around the 70s, which is kind of the area that's being resisted. And then below, we actually had at the 41s, we had a double bottom versus on the RTH session. So both the Friday and the Monday RTH low are 53.41, which is significant, and it's really weird. That's not something that happens a lot. It's kind of you know, to me, it's indicative of yesterday's kind of low volume, listless environment where you expect something like a double bottom to be cleaned up, tested through, and it ends up not getting cleaned up. But that's important. But on the daily chart, things to remember, we have a bullish kind of skew with where prices are going. However, we're in balance, and the Friday high and low are the key, and we have this HVN above in the 65 to 70 region, which is the key above, and then below, really the 41 area is really key. We have a lot of single prints through here as well. Let's discuss that on a smaller time frame chart. Okay, here we have our structure chart. And what to be aware of here, first we have our, let me get my Epic pen here. So we have this prior area of balance that we had, which is the 49s up to the 005s-ish. And we tested below, rallied back above. And here we are with kind of a market structure high of sorts and a market structure low of sorts. And we're balancing right here. The key on this chart is that we are holding above this 33 to 24 region that I had kind of earmarked. So we're holding above that, and we have this double bottom on with the daily RTH low. It's not really visible on this chart because it's a 2-hour chart, but we know it's there. And then we have settlement and our HVN area above. So the key that I'm kind of looking at today is we are forming a wedge. That's what's happening. We have pushed above this area of prior balance, which is right here. We had our test above, rejection below, continuation. Find our buyers. We see these big swings higher. It starts happening, and then we push through, and now here we are. So that's the key to recognize on this chart. This how we've kind of reacted to the structure. Now we're holding above in this sort of balanced area of consolidation. So what price action can we expect from that? Let's take a look on our 8 box and we'll plan for it. Okay, here we have our trigger chart, and let's just take a look at what we're looking at. Here is, just for reference, this is one vola down, here's 2 vola down, here's 1 vola up, here's 2 vola up. Here is settlement and our prior VPOC right here. It's just where we know a lot of things are. Settlement, prior VPOC right here. Try to draw that in some way that makes sense. Settlement, prior VPOC right in that area. Prior high, and here we can see a little bit better. Here is the RTH low from Friday, and here is the RTH low from yesterday. They are the same price, and we had, which is really just odd. It's that's not something you see. You see double TPO highs or lows are pretty odd. We'll see those every once in a while, but an actual double bottom or a double high on the RTH session is odd. It's not something you see that even less. But anyway, we have our test through prior and a test through here. So really what we're looking at, these 41s are important, but what's happening here is we're building a wedge. And here is prior week's high, Friday high, to yesterday's high. So we're building a wedge. And the key sort of the key line in the sand above is this area, settlement to, or prior VPOC to settlement, right around here. We see this structure. And then also on the bottom, really these 41s are probably the biggest, the area to be aware of below. So we have a wedge. So let's discuss what happens when we have a wedge like this. I'm going to give you a couple ideas. So first off, be aware today is the day before CPI and FOMC. So who knows what's going to happen? Like there's a just based on with those numbers coming out, we had nothing yesterday, nothing today. So be very careful with just like, just craziness in here that doesn't really do anything. That's the biggest risk to today, is having just a bunch of nonsense happen in the middle and trying to trade it and taking a loss that isn't necessary the day before big numbers. So for me, if we're just messing around in here, I'm going to be very light and tight in the ES and maybe not even trade it too much. Maybe look at crude oil. So within the wedge, we want to be aware of that. If we're just hanging out in the wedge and we're chopping around, we need to be aware of that. And that's, for most of us, it's probably something to be very careful and cautious with. Now let's talk about some other ideas. Okay, so the first idea on either side would be a test and reverse for me. So that could look like something, we're right here, we open around here, and the way that this could happen with an open lower here, we could test up, open around here, or maybe have in pre-market test up, test into FS levels, maybe above, push through, fall. We take out these single prints left from yesterday, fall down, take out the 41s, which are just waiting for a test. Take the 41s. A lot of people are probably waiting for this. There's a lot of tension on the 41s. So we could trade down, test it, break, test down maybe into these 24s, maybe lower, maybe only to here. We don't know. But the whole point here would be some test through the 41s that reverts back above the 41s. Maybe we get a retest, which is a lot of fun. to trade, and then continuation higher back through the singles back into range. I would be looking at the 60s and then potentially settlement. So this would be an idea where we get a test below that probably takes the 41s and reverts above the 41s for the long back to 60s and settlement. This would be a great trade if we get it. I don't know if we'll get it, but it'd be a nice trade. That would be any kind of a break of the 41s that reverts above, holds the 41s, and continues higher. That's one idea for the break and reverse. Let's talk about what happens if it happens on the upside. Could happen the exact same way. Pre-open, we could just kind of be hanging around here. We might even get a test to or around 41s pre-open that continues higher above the 60s. Takes settlement, may or may not take yesterday's high, which is 75s. That's a key price. Takes it and then falls below. This structure would be key for anything going on up here. If, like I said, this area settlement, so any type of a test above that falls below and then can't get back out, it's going to be the same thing on the other side. We're looking for a test, reverse back to the 60s, and then if the 60s can't provide support, then we'll be looking for it to go back down, take out these single prints if they're still available, and if not, maybe that's how we get the 41 test. But this would be so this would be basically one idea, just a test outside of the wedge and revert, test out here that reverts. So that's our test and revert idea. It could happen either way. The 41s are key on the low end, and above the 65s prior VPOC to prior settle is the key areas for a test and reverse situation. What's another way that this wedge could work out? Let's discuss another way. Put the wedge back up there. There's the wedge. The other way this could also happen, and this could happen on either side, so we'll be aware of it as well, but we'll look at it from the long side first. So again, we could get the test, we could not, but anyway, if we instead have kind of a test and grind situation, that would be, for me, a situation on the long side that breaks above prior VPOC, prior settle, kind of like maybe gives some small pullback, but not a good one, and then just kind of grinds. And it looks like it could be a test because it looks weak. So everyone's like, oh, maybe it's going to test and do what I just said. But sometimes it does not, and it just breaks and just kind of grinds. And everyone's like, oh, it's not going to fail back. And then we get a bigger push. So something like that. That would be a break of the wedge that looks like it might fail back, but it just keeps grinding and eventually gives some type of an acceleration. That's another way. If we break and hold on the upper side above the settlement, we're looking for the prior week's high, Friday high. If we continue through that, the only landmark I have is the 5400s. So that would be a break and grind on the upside. Same thing. Below, if we get it below, I would expect some attempt towards settlement, but again, it could just push through FS levels, attempt to hold, fall back, and then we could get through the singles, and then we could get that test into the 41 area and get the break and grind lower, where we take the 41s, everyone's like, oh, we're going to rally, and then we just keep getting these like sloppy, like miserable auction lower. But if we break the 41s and we start grinding, we're looking for 33 halves. If the 33 halves do not provide support, we're looking for the 24s or 25s. If 24s or 25s do not provide support, we're looking for 13s to 16s. And then if we get down to these 04, 05 region, that's our balance area low from our 05 to 49 area that I've been talking about for weeks now. So if we get there, I would expect support on the first touch, and I would probably expect support really at the 24s, because don't forget, this is already one vola down here. This is two vola down. That's a lot of excursion. So just reiterating, we have the wedge, and we could do a test and then reverse in one direction or another, or we could do a test and then grind. Those are two ways we could break. Both could happen on either side. We could also get just on either side, we could also get just and I won't draw it on both, but we could get just a clean break. And that on the long side, that would look something like maybe this low holds, we get above FS levels, everyone thinks we're going to fail back, we don't. All of a sudden we break settlement and we're holding, everyone's like, is it a break and fall back? But then all of a sudden it just continues, the buying accelerates and we get above the prior week's high. Maybe we get a test and then we continue, but just a clean break. That could happen on either side. So really, what are we looking for? We have the wedge. We could stay in the wedge. That's going to be probably a tough trade. We could get a test and reverse on either side. We could get a test and grind through, or we could get a clean break. Those are basically, those are the categories of things that could happen today. So whatever happens today, it's going to fall into one of those categories. And our job is going to be to figure it out and then trade it correctly. That's our job. But that's what I'm seeing today in the ES. Again, I just want to mention, be aware that because we have all these numbers tomorrow, important numbers, what may happen is the morning, like things can happen a little bit different when we have so much data that everyone's kind of waiting for. Everyone knows it's there. So the ways that could happen, it could happen very quickly when no one's ready, like on the open, like we could just immediately get what we're going to get. Maybe it's a strong move and it starts happening very quickly. And it just happens, fast. That could happen. Or what we might get is a morning that just kind of chops, nothing really happens. We're in the wedge. Everyone's like, oh, we're just trading the wedge. Nothing's going to happen. And then later on the day, all of a sudden, one side just starts getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then we run off into the close. So that's a possibility as well. We could have a choppy morning that just kind of one side just sort of tilts the scales one side, and then we end up moving into the afternoon. So those are a couple ways we could have that those moves could happen. Quick move early when it's unexpected, or we could get chop early and then it just kind of slowly becomes, a trade that goes somewhere. Or we could just chop within the wedge all day. So that's those are the things I'm looking for today in the ES. Really key areas, like I said, 41s, super key. Be aware of the 41s. Another key area, 65 to 71s. These are, if you only know two prices today, guys, 65 to 71 and 41s. If you only know two prices, those are the two prices to know. And that's what I got for you today. I hope that this is useful. I hope it's valuable in some way, shape, or form. I hope that everyone is having a good day today, and I hope that everyone can improve their trading somehow. And most importantly, of course, I hope you make somebody else smile, because that's really what's important. If you don't like the trade today, keep the powder dry, because it's going to be busy tomorrow. But if you do like the trade, clock those ticks. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one, everybody.